Good morning. Today's episode is going to be in two parts. The first part, we're going to talk about the power of images, and we're going to use a lesson from a Facing History and Ourselves unit called Facing Ferguson, News Literacy in a Digital Age. And then in the second part of this segment, we're going to explore a teacher and a student here in CMSD who did a pop-up discussion, and you're going to find out about what she values and what she wanted to talk about. So the first part is the power of images. Okay, so heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Find out how you can become an upstander. Wait, well, who is an upstander? What is an upstander? Well, I have a little video to show you. So that is a short little video that is from Facing History and Ourselves, as I stated, and hopefully you've heard of Facing History in Ourselves in your history class, or maybe in an English class. So who is an upstander? Well, an upstander is someone who says what they believe in, even if people disagree. They stand up for what they believe in. They know that they can create change, and they know that their voice matters. Anyone can be an upstander, even you as a teenager. You have a voice and you can create change. So a little background on Ferguson. On the afternoon of August 9th, 2014, Michael Brown, an unarmed Black teenager, was shot to death in a confrontation with Darren Wilson, a white police officer from Fergus, Missouri. Within a week, the shooting became a flashpoint for a national discussion about race, policing, and justice in the United States. Using Ferguson as a case study, we will explore the media coverage and the protests that followed, driven to a large degree by social media, and learn to become informed and effective civic participants in today's digital landscape. Now, obviously, this is just a short segment. We aren't going to be able to go as in depth and complete the whole unit. but we're going to focus on these essential questions in this. How can we become responsible consumers and producers of news and information in the digital age? And what factors should be considered when selecting images associated with a news event? Now, Ferguson happened in 2014. And a lot of you may not remember hearing about it. But as we go through this, you're going to see that there are a lot of similarities to what is going on in our country and in our city right now. So I want to focus on this, but keep in mind that some of this is going to bring up some emotion. So this was the front page of the New York Times on August 14th, just days after Michael Brown's death. And the title of the front page was "Ferguson Images Evoke Civil Rights Era and Changing Visual Perceptions." And so on the left, you have a picture that was taken in Ferguson. And on the right, you have a picture that is from Birmingham, Alabama in 1963 during the Civil Rights Movement. One thing that you need to keep in mind is that images capture moments. They are seldom comprehensive or entirely representative. They are also seen through the biases of the viewer. So that first part, think about it. You're taking a selfie of yourself, or you're doing a Snapchat picture with a filter on it. They're not comprehensive, and they're not completely representative of what you look like at that moment. Also, you have to take into account the biases of the person taking the picture and the biases of the people who are looking at the picture. Bias. So what is a bias? Well, a bias is a tendency to believe that some people, ideas, etc., are better than others, which often results in treating some people unfairly. We all have biases towards specific things. I always say when I'm talking about my son, I'm biased. I think he's the best kid in the world. Is he? In my eyes, I would say yes, but really, is he? That's my bias. So are there different types of biases? Yes, there are. There is explicit bias and implicit bias. We're not going to get into those in today's lesson because we just don't have time, but we are going to talk about confirmation bias. Okay, so this is a long, kind of complicated definition. Okay, so confirmation bias is the selective collection of evidence. Is our subconscious tendency to seek and interpret information from other evidence in ways that affirm our existing beliefs, ideas, expectations, and/or hypotheses. Therefore, confirmation bias is both affected by and feeds our implicit biases. It can be most entrenched around beliefs and ideas that we are strongly attached to or that provoke a strong emotional response. There are a lot of really big words and you can get really lost. Well, I found a video on the Facing History site that gives a great definition of confirmation bias. Watch.
Confirmation bias is the idea that we tend to accept information unquestioningly when it reinforces some predisposition we have or some existing belief or attitude. The flip side of that is disconfirmation bias. People tend to be unduly skeptical of information that contradicts some predisposition they have or point of view. So we tend to be too accepting of information we want to hear and too critical of information we don't want to hear. The problem is when it comes to matters of fact, where there is a right answer, there is evidence that is overwhelming on one side or the other, and yet our predispositions are getting in the way of us accepting that information. Confirmation bias is important because we often are trying to evaluate information, and we would like to evaluate in a way that's accurate. But we also sometimes care about what the outcome is. We have a preference for who's right. And when that preference affects what we believe, we may come to have inaccurate views. We may tend to have a narrow-minded view or a biased view because our predispositions are influencing our judgments about the world.
Okay, so far making sense.
I think readers they're living in a world now where they can go find whatever will confirm their bias. If the Washington Post doesn't report Ferguson the way they want it reported, they can go to a place that feeds their ideology, that feeds their view of the world. And those sites exist. That's why they're in business.
We're in a moment where people are choosing their own media, and in politics, national politics, we have a sort of separation. You see more confirmation bias in source selection when it comes to national politics than anywhere else. But actually, moments of crisis like Ferguson and Baltimore, and I shudder to say the next incident, are moments when we open up our aperture just a little bit more, and the meaning can change.
Okay, so like I said, these guys, they explained it a lot better than I did with that definition. So this idea of a confirmation bias, this is going to impact the pictures and the media that we look at. So if we were in school and you were sitting in my class and we were going to be doing an activity around this, I would have these questions on the board. I would have them printed out for you to have in front of you so you could work in your small groups. And we would really talk and make a safe place for everyone to share their beliefs. But unfortunately, we're not in school. And I'm just talking to a computer screen. I can't see you. But I want to go through these steps, modify them a little bit. I'm going to modify them a little bit so that you can do it at home. So the first step is you look really close at the image, okay? You're going to identify the shapes and colors and textures, the position of the people and objects. You're really going to look at what you see. And as you're looking at those things, you're going to write down those things that you see without trying to interpret or decide what it's trying to say. Sorry. After that, we would come together and you would ask questions that you have about that picture. Some clarifying questions, some things that you need to understand. We would have that discussion as a group. But then in step 4, you would then discuss those questions with the students at your table. So you would sit and you would have these, you would talk about your questions and see if you guys had similar questions or different questions and try to answer the questions. And then the next step, you're going to go through and you're going to look at the historical context of the subject of the piece. And what is it that you think that the artist is trying to say? What does the picture mean? Who do you think the audience is that it was intended for? And then after that, we would have a class discussion about interpreting your interpretations. Well, we're not at school and we can't do that. So one thing that you could do is look at these images and that with your family members, with your friends, with whoever is around that will sit down and look at these images with you and work through this together. That would be something you can do all summer as you see things, because as we know, this incident that happened in 2014 is very similar to what is going on in our nation today. And you're going to be seeing images and you're going to be getting information. And this is a way for you to be able to analyze it and share your feelings. Okay, so the first photo that we are going to look at is this one here. It's a police officer in Ferguson. So if you look at the steps, you're going to go and you're going to look at the picture. And what are all the things that you see? Just looking at the people, the shapes, the colors, the objects that are in the picture. Don't try and figure out what it's portraying, what is it trying to say. It's what do you see, what you physically see. And as you see these things, you write them down. That's steps 1 and 2. Then you're going to have questions. What is the questions that you have? What are the questions that you have? What questions do you need to have answered before you can interpret this? Those would be questions that you would have with the people in your house. Maybe somebody does know what that is. Maybe somebody maybe has an opinion on what it is. Then you're going to look at the historical context. This was after the shooting of Michael Brown. What do you think the artist is trying to say? What does this piece mean? Who are they taking this picture for? Who do you think the intended audience is? And then the last part, you're going to discuss this. Discuss this again with the person that is there with you, that you have a relationship with, that you can discuss these things, and just, bring out the feelings that this picture evokes in you. Okay, so that's picture 1. And technology is being funky again. Okay, so picture 2. This one is, again, look at the picture. What do you see? I see lots of people. I see them wearing tank tops. I see cars. I see grass. I see trees. I see a housing building. I see houses. Those are the things that you're gonna notice, and you're gonna write those things down. Then again, what are the questions? What are the questions that you need to have answered before you can interpret this? Discuss the questions, then think about the historic context of this picture. Again, it was during in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014. And you might even look and see how is it similar to the things that you're seeing and experiencing today, and what's going on in our country, in our city. And then you're going to have that conversation about your interpretation. What do you think it is? Who do you think it was made for? What image? What idea is it putting forth? What is its message? Okay, so that's the second picture. Move myself. Come on. Okay. The third and last picture is this one. Again, look at it. What do you see? Who's in it? What words do you see? What colors do you see? What items and objects do you see? Write those down. Have those questions. Come up with those questions. Discuss those questions. Think about the historic context of it. It was after the Michael Brown killing. What would be going on? Who do you think the intended audience is for this picture? And then you're going to discuss that interpretation. And also you might discuss in any of these pictures about how it relates to maybe something that you have seen or been dealing with in your own life. Okay, so next thing is, how do we respond to images? Okay, so I have a video, again, that's going to show you about how we respond to images. And what I really like about this video is that we are going to see all sides of this video, of all the people's different sides of point of view from the very first picture that I showed you.
There's an image that I shot of a police officer firing a tear gas canister. It was shot during one of my ride-alongs with the tactical team. And that image I find fascinating because people view that image through their own personal biases. And the caption with the image says, St. Louis County Police Tactical Team member fires a tear gas canister in Ferguson. It's a very dramatic picture. It's got there's a helicopter light streaking down through the center of the picture. The man is firing a tear gas launcher. It's got a big flame coming out of it. And there's the red lights of the sirens and the blue lights of the sirens kind of mixed in there. And there's tear gas in the background. My boss's initial reaction to that photo was, "Oh my God, this looks like a video game an image." I was like, "That's the reality out here right now. We need to run that." We ran that picture on our front page.
So he said that they ran this picture as on the front page of the newspaper. So, excuse me. So how do you think different members of the community reacted to this image when it was published? So think of all the different players in the community, all the different people you have from all different parts of the community. What do you think? How do you think they would have reacted? Give you a second to think about that. How would you react to that? You're a member of the community. How would you react if that was on the front page of your newspaper?
The thing about that picture that is fascinating is that the police officers loved that picture. They loved that picture. They thought it showed them doing their job and it made them look, very sort of strong and powerful and stuff. And the protesters loved this picture. They thought that this picture showed, police militarization and police violence, and look at these outrageous tactics the police are deploying on us. I find that picture to be fascinating as to how people view that picture, whether that picture is viewed through the eyes of the police and police sympathizers, or whether it's viewed through protesters and protesters sympathizers. Depends on how you view that photograph. And so that to me is a successful photograph because, I've just showed what was going on, and people are, from both sides are sort of reading into it, but I've stated pretty clearly in the caption what was going on. I like that photograph for that reason, because people do sort of take their own takes on it.
I think the media really had, especially the national sources, were very geared towards taking the photos of the tear gas and taking photos of the flames and the quick trip going up in flames. And I mean, that did happen, obviously, but I think that they really wanted to focus on the more hard images rather than the peaceful things that were also going on. And I think not really they had a bias, but I mean, kind of, they're just looking for the attention and not really it's not as big of a story to see, I don't know, not friendly, but nonviolent interaction in Ferguson. And I think that was something that wasn't really covered a lot.
I think that television, and in particular what I try to do in the stories that I did, where we try to provide context, focused on deeper meanings to things that we saw through people. You can still get emotional. You can still have conflict. You can still see action if somebody is doing something to get their point across. They don't have to be yelling at somebody. I don't have to see a burning building to create good TV. But I will tell you that when the city was on fire, it was remarkable to watch it. I'd never seen anything like it in any community I've lived in. There were people who were concerned about the fact that our coverage, and not just our coverage, but television, I think in general, made Ferguson at times look like a war zone. I'm not talking about the half dozen blocks or so that were pretty chaotic at times. I'm talking about the entire city of Ferguson, I think people believed was blowing up. And it clearly wasn't. And I think that we got those criticisms quite a bit.
One of the things I think is vitally important, especially when you're doing this in real time, is acknowledging where you are and what you don't know. Acknowledging the fact that very often in a fast-moving, chaotic, hectic situation, you have a very specific vantage point of a very specific action. If I'm standing in front of a certain storefront and everything is peaceful, that does not mean that 2 blocks away, there's not a store being looted. And I think that is what's very difficult, is that so often we expect of our reporters on the ground this 30,000 foot analysis of, but what is happening in Ferguson right now? Is it violent or is it peaceful? In reality, everything is more complicated than that.
So that makes you think. I hope it makes you think. Were you surprised by the different responses to the video? How could confirmation bias play into these interpretations? Do you agree or disagree with the photographer, Carson, that this was a highly successful photo? And do you think it was a good one to put on the front page of the newspaper? Why or why not? And so how you feel about that photo and about the different responses, or the response that you have, could be as a result of your confirmation bias of how you feel about specific things. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up my section. Information does not only come from news sources and reporters. You have to remember that we are both consumers. We read, we take in the information, and we're producers of information. When we tweet, when we send out a snap, when we do a video or a meme or any kind of post, that is sending out information that others are going to see. Make sure that you analyze posts and pictures and news for the facts and the biases so that you know where it's coming from. You also need to know what you stand for. What are your beliefs? What are your needs? Remember, right now in our country, we are primary sources. We are creating and recording history. But what I want you to take away from this whole episode today is that you need to start conversations about how you feel, what you need, and what you believe in. You need to be an upstander. So now you're going to watch a video from a student and a teacher from Campus International, and I want you to see how she is being an upstander. And then remember, be an upstander, start good, healthy conversations, and do your part to make this world a better place. Remember that your teachers miss you, and we hope to see you in August. Bye.
I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio.
I'm in the Fulton, Memphis area.
My wife and I and our 3 boys live in Edgewater.
I live in the Lakeshore Collinwood Arts District.
I live in Camps Corner area.
I've lived in the West Park neighborhood for 21 years.
For 5 years.
I've lived in Cleveland all my life.
37 years.
Majority of my life.
All my life.
18 years.
Cleveland's great. I mean, I love that there's always stuff to do. There's so many free things to do with kids.
Best city in the country. I love it. I mean, it's a good city. The school system is awesome.
I think Cleveland schools are making great progress. New things are happening at CMSD, you know, I want to be a part of that.
So the Cleveland Plan was legislation that was put in place in 2012 to be able to transform Cleveland's public schools.
The change in the school district in the last 10 years is one that's focused on high performance, that's focused on providing school choice for families so they can figure out what school is best for them, and moving into a period where we're acknowledging that education needs need to change for our students, for our economy, for our families, and how do we meet families where they are to do that.
The schools offer far more choices. They're more career oriented.
All kids don't learn the same. All kids aren't interested in the same things. I like the fact that we do have those choices.
If your child needs a particular approach or needs in the kind of classroom to help meet their growth, I think the Cleveland plan is about providing those options too.
I've just been really happy with the preschool here. I'm just so grateful that I found this school and that my child is here.
It's nice. It's very nice to know I can choose what school. I can have my options of going to each building and seeing what is the best choice for my kids.
When I did research, I was looking for the best schools that Cleveland had to offer.
The teachers are great. They work well with us. They constantly keep in communication with us, and that's really the key, is like that we're all involved.
It's nice to walk into a school and have them know who you are.
The structure of the academics is very, very rigorous, and I love it.
I am a 2016 graduate of Cleveland Early College High School on the John Hay campus. Choice for me was great because I had the opportunity to really take ownership of my education.
The high school graduation push and the increase is definitely a result of what the district is doing in order for the schools to thrive, because now you have better schools, quality schools, and when you can push that, students see that you care about them. Now they begin to care about their education.
We stand with 117 private colleges that are going to offer every student in the public school system of Cleveland, Ohio, free college tuition.
Say Yes to Education is an initiative in our city which offers wraparound support services to students and their families so that students can be most successful in their K-12 education. Probably the biggest headline of Say Yes is that it's going to offer last dollar tuition scholarships to students to any public 2- or 4-year institution, as well as accredited Pell-eligible career and technical trainings.
Families at this point have no choice to say that, oh, my child, I can't afford college, or I'm not going to send my child to college, because that opportunity is there.
The barriers, the social, economic, demographic, all of the things that especially a lot of urban kids have to endure, which prevents a lot of them from prospering, are definitely minimized.
It's amazing. I couldn't be happier with the way Cleveland is moving up.
We are doing what we set out to do in 2012 with the Cleveland Plan. We are actually seeing results, and that's a great thing. It's an incredible accomplishment. We don't see this kind of growth in the urban district elsewhere in this country.
The children are the future. Anything that we do, we have to plan for them to get a great education, a quality education that is technologically advanced so that they're prepared. And with that preparation, you can't stop us. Cannot stop us. So look out every other city, because Cleveland is on their way.
There are many moments when, as educators, we know that it's time to stop. To take a pause on what we were planning to do in the classroom and make space for what's happening in the world, and give students a chance to express their thoughts and feelings. Without our classrooms, we're unable to sit together and talk, and it's easy to feel more isolated than ever. George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor remind us that, even during the pandemic, systemic racism and violence against people of color is a reality that does not shut down. As educators in Cleveland, many of us know that we must take an actively anti-racist stance and work to end systems of oppression that harm our students, their families, and our communities. One of our most important jobs is making sure our students are heard and make the space and time to amplify their voices. One CMSD teacher was able to facilitate this task even during our COVID-19 closure. Campus International High School rising senior Ayanna Hendricks approached her English teacher, Mr. Ellenbogen, about the opportunity for her to lead a discussion on the Ahmaud Arbery. First, you will hear Mr. Ellenbogen describe how the project got started, and then you will see a portion of their discussion. As you watch, pay attention to how the members of the conversation interact and the points that they make. Are there times when you agree, when you disagree? If you have something you'd like to share about the discussion, feel free to tweet it out, #CMSD Student Voice.
My name is Charles Ellenbogen. I'm a language and literature teacher at Campus International High School. My third year there and the third year of the school, so I'm one of its founders, and it's my 27th, or I guess I just finished my 27th year of teaching overall, including the 6th in Cleveland.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about what the project is that we're about to see?
Well, as with many good ideas, I stole it. The notion of a pop-up class occurred to me last year, or it came to me last year. I think I read about somebody else doing it, and it struck me that things come up in the course of life that there aren't always room for in the curriculum. And the way I read about it being used was just around current events, and our students responded very emotionally to the Parkland shooting. And I wasn't sure that as a school we did what we could to address that and give them room for that. The challenge was during the school day and the school year when we're in the building, making time, right? And not only making time, but making time for all students to be involved, not just a particular class, a particular grade, or even trying to open up the opportunity to teachers as well. So several weeks ago, some sort of TikTok, I'm not a TikTok expert, video appeared that went viral of two students. I don't know I don't really follow TikTok, so I don't know how widely it was distributed, but it disturbed one of our students, Ayana Hendricks, very much. And she just asked, can we talk about it? And I asked her what she meant, and she wanted to include other students. And so I just brought back the idea of a pop-up class. And so we set it up on Zoom, and I'd say we had 15, 18 participants, including some parents, which kind of happened accidentally, and just talked about what was in the video and what had happened to the students as a consequence, and the role of social media and all of that. And I think Ayana got some confidence from doing that. And that's part of what I try to do in general, but especially in this format, it was important to me that it be student initiated and student led. Anyway, I figured it would gain some traction if students saw, hey, this is something we can do if we have something we want to talk about. And so when the Arbery case came to light, she asked if we could do it again. And so to try to take the next step, I made some suggestions about how she might prepare a little bit more. And so she wrote some questions and found some links, and we had, again, probably the same number, maybe a few more adults than we would have liked, but she was definitely in charge. And she kept asking ahead of time, did I want to look at the questions or the links? And I said, no, it's yours. And so she organized it, and it was a lot of difficult questions. And I think what was different about this time was she invited friends from other schools. And so it really opened up the idea of what we can do online that we couldn't even do at school. So I think we're all trying to figure out, like, what could be the advantages of online, not just taking what you normally do and putting it online. And she also had a middle school teacher join, and she was so proud of her. You know, of course, she knows the child from when she was, 11 or 12, and suddenly here she is leading this discussion. So that was the origin of the idea.
But for a teacher looking from the outside, what should they do or, think about to prepare?
So I would say it's establishing the protocols, just like you would do in a classroom. It's, and one thing I said to Ayana very carefully is that the first 5 or 10 minutes have to be making sure we're all dealing with the same set of facts, right? We can't have, that can't be the object of the conversation. I mean, clearly we can't know everything, but what do we know, right? And making sure everybody's in agreement about that and having the sources ready if there are questions about that. So starting with facts, setting the protocols for the discussion, making sure there's a clear purpose. So you have to be willing to let the student lead with an issue like that. You have to give some space for emotions. And I think you have to be prepared for a direction. You don't want to lead the conversation with everybody kind of riled up. And though it didn't happen in any major way, if it's a good topic, there might be some serious disagreement, and how to navigate that online, and how to encourage people to talk in a civil fashion. So I think this is an example of something we can do online that we couldn't really do in school. And I think that that's the kind of thing we need to begin to investigate. We can't just take school and plop it online. It's going to be different. And I think this is one of the ways moving forward that we can say this is actually better. Take advantage of the opportunity to be online in ways we couldn't.
Absolutely.
So I want to explain, just to get it on record, about the origin of pop-up classes, and then I want to talk to you about your experience. You wanted to talk about this racist TikTok video, and I said, here's what I can offer. We can pick a time, we can do this, we can't require anybody. And you said, okay, I'll give it a try. So what made you willing to experiment in this kind of format?
Well, I think it'll be very beneficial. I think that it will be beneficial towards us as students, and also to anyone else that was interested in having these type of discussions, because it allows us to be open to have these kind of conversations and just have a middle ground with each other, and talk about things that aren't always discussed, like in school or out of school. And even if you exactly don't know like what we're going to talk about, it's okay to still come and listen, because then it might be something that you're newly experienced to, and then like, oh, I really like this, maybe we can talk about this next time, this.
Now, you said for this next one, you're doing more preparing, and you even mentioned initially that you think it might require 2 sessions. What's your vision for each session? What's your goal?
I want people to walk away from this with like something that they can reminisce.
Things you need to know about Amanda Arbery. Gregory McMichael told the police that there have been several recent break-ins in the neighborhood, and that while in his front yard, he saw the person he suspected from those incidents coming down Satilla Drive, according to a February 23rd Glenn County Police Department incident report. The McMichaels hopped in a truck with guns, the older McMichael with a .357 Magnum and Travis a shotgun, the report states. When they eventually caught up to Arbery, the young McMichael exited the truck with his gun, and that's when the unidentified male began to violently attack Travis, and the 2 men began fighting over the gun, the McMichael stated. The statement to the police said Travis McMichael shot twice, the police report states. What do you think you would do in his situation? As Arbery, as the recorder?
I don't know what I would do, but my initial reflection is just that video, it seemed so fast.
Yeah.
As Arbery, you really couldn't do anything. I mean, I guess I would plead for them to not kill me like they did to Mr. Arbery, and as a recorder, I would have helped, like said, no, don't do that. Even if he was, let's say, if that person was doing wrong, nobody deserves to be murdered in cold blood like that. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like as Arbery, I feel like I would have done exactly what Arbery did. If someone approached me, or if 2 men approached me in a car and pulled out guns, I would fight, right? I would feel threatened and react by trying to stop them from killing me.
I know that with the recording of it, Arbery's family didn't like how you recorded it and the fact that he recorded it.
I was going to say, I think I'd be extremely frustrated. Like, I don't know if the person who was recording could have even done anything, because it's two armed insane people basically. But I know if someone close to me was killed and it was being recorded, I'd still be extremely frustrated by that.
Do you think it was right for the male to sit there and record while the incident was happening? And do you think that it's just?
Yes and no, because we wouldn't have known about the situation, because you know how people like to put behind stuff. So it was good that it was caught on tape. But also no, because I don't know, I've never been in that situation, so I don't know if he maybe could have talked the two armed men out of shooting Ahmaud. And yeah, it's just 50-50. I don't know what I would do or what he was thinking. So yeah, I don't know if it was right or wrong.
Are we substituting pulling out our phone cameras for action?
Exactly.
Yes, we need to see it. There needs to be proof. But we've seen proof doesn't always lead to conviction.
I have mixed feelings. I am appreciative of this, right? Because the reality is that Black people in America, people of color in America, have been, and I'm going to use this very, lynched, and their bodies have been weaponized since the beginning of Black people in this country, right? And the only difference now is that the upside of technology is that there is actually some type of proof, right? Because without this video recording, without this being kind of put on blast, I know I wouldn't have heard of it.
Do you think it's morally right for someone to take law into their own hands?
But there's a line, right? When you're putting someone's life on the line, that has to be the only time I feel like that can even be an option is if it's when protecting someone else's life. And in this way, certainly the video, I think, allows us to see it doesn't appear that Ahmaud in any way was threatening someone else's life.
Exactly. And there was this video online that a white male, he was running in his neighborhood with a TV in his hand. And as he was running, no one said anything to him. They were just laughing and just joking. And to make a point that, if the roles were flipped or, no one deems him as, dangerous or threatening or, he's suspect him of being a burglar in our neighborhood.
Yeah, because he didn't fit the role of someone who would do that. And that morally right question, I feel like, there's that center of race and privilege attached to it, in the sense that I have the right to protect mine and do what's best for me and mine, and at the expense of somebody else. And if someone of color took that approach, then it's a crime, and it is basically a death sentence. And that inequality is going to keep resurfacing and keep resurfacing.
Officials said the charges coming months after the shooting had not been driven by the surge of attention around the country. Gregory McMichael told the police that Mr. Arbery looked like the suspect in a string of nearby break-ins, but according to media reports, there had been just one reported burglary in the neighborhood this year. The thief of a gunman from an unlocked truck parked outside Travis McMichael's house. Why do you think it took so long for the two white males to get arrested? Mind you, Arbery got shot in February, and the two white males got arrested in May.
I don't know. Like, I feel like so much just has to be changed about our justice system. We can't just like pinpoint one thing about it. And like also like with our entire constitution, it's just kind of like things that you're not allowed to do. But I think that a bunch of things need to be changed to what you are allowed to do, if that makes sense. Like, it would cancel out a bunch of things. Does that make sense?
Hey, yeah, so I think the reason it took so long for them to get arrested was because obviously there was two white men who shot and killed this man, and I think one of them was a former officer, right?
Yeah, and like one of the issues with our country is that like our police unions and our police like workforces care more about each other than than the people they protect or they're supposed to protect. I don't know what's going on with them, but like the like whole weird camaraderie between like the police, it's like them ganging up against the citizens is almost the mentality from what I've heard from like ex-police officers. Yeah, like I understand like Mr. Allenbogen like saying that like it's like complacency to only like record or only post on social media. But like if you really think about it, social media is social media is like the radio of our times, you know? Like the radio is the first place that people like that politicians could like speak openly without like having to worry about investors or whatnot. So like social media is like our generation being able to speak out against people who have far more power than us.
Well, I know that in this case, like social media has helped this case, you know, be known and alongside with other cases, which I think is a good thing because, you know, if not a lot of people have heard about this case and many other cases, then, you know, it wouldn't get the attention that it needs. But there's also other cases that, you know, don't get media attention and are just, you know, just another bump in the road or not as, you know, set as like a high priority type. Was his death justifiable and why?
I don't know if you're going to get to this, Anna, so you can tell me if you are. But I get nervous about getting bogged down in the details of one case. I think that's actually what the other side wants, that everything is about the details.
Yeah.
And I think that we've had enough examples, whatever the specifics of the case are, that, as someone said, and I think is floating a little bit in here in the chat, is that we've got a systems problem.
Definitely.
And that may have produced these two men and their atmosphere that they thought gave them permission to do what they did. But I think we're past the point of finding these things exceptional, right? And so what is the move towards, I mean, what is the source of the problem here? I mean, some of you talked about police unions and the like. And I guess the flip side of the question is, what is the source? I don't think it'll ever go to zero, but what is the source of improving the situation?
In my opinion, I don't think that like any death had like a reasonable explanation, like, and especially not this one. Like, I feel like no one should be killed.
Newly released CCTV footage from February 23rd shows a man dressed in clothes matching those of Ahmaud Arbery on a private construction site approximately 240 yards from the scene of Arbery's fatal shooting on that day. The property belongs to Larry English, who said that CCTV had captured a trespasser on the property a number of times before February 23rd. Does this new information change your perception of Arbery and why?
I don't like the idea of bringing in other information added to the story. Because we get that to paint a narrative or to paint a person in a certain light. And we see that over and over and over again, right? A kid is shot, and then we look to see if he's a part of a gang or a drug dealer or something along those lines.
But again, I think that this is the fabric of our nation. There has always been justification to why people of privilege treat people of non-privilege like crap.
And that concludes our pop-up discussion. There will be more in the future. I'm hoping to do a part 2. Me and Kai are going to be doing a poetry workshop. So, and then at the end, we're going to have a big slam.
If Ayana has inspired you to create a pop-up discussion of your own, we hope you'll share it with us at #CMSD Student Voice. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and know that when we can't be together, we see you, we hear you, we love you, and we are committed to a better world.
Has your household completed the 2020 census yet? The census is an official count of everybody in this country, and the results of it determine how much federal money goes into programming for the children of Cleveland for the next 10 years. It's completely private and confidential. The results can't be shared with anyone, not even law enforcement. And the best part? It's easy. You can fill out your census online, by phone, or by mail.
¿Su casa ha llenado el censo de 2020? El censo es el conteo oficial de todas las personas en el país y los resultados determinan cuántos fondos federales se distribuyen en programas que benefician a todos los niños de nuestra región para los próximos 10 años. Toda la información es privada. Las respuestas son confidenciales y no pueden ser compartidas con nadie, ni siquiera oficiales de la ley. Y mejor que todo, es fácil. Puede responder por internet, por teléfono o por correo.
So who counts?
Entonces, ¿quién cuenta?
Does my cat count?
¿Los gatos cuentan?
No.
No.
Do my dogs count?
¿Los perros cuentan?
No.
No.
Does he count?
¿Los niños cuentan?
Yes.
Sí.
Everybody that's a human in your house counts.
Cada persona que es ser humano en tu casa cuenta.
So to fill out your census, go to www.my2020census.gov or call 1-844-330-2020.